Alaska. My name is Kris, the Motorcoach Commander Mueller. If you don't believe it, just Google it. I'm born in Alaska, raised in the Yukon. Dad ran a hotel in Whitehorse, Yukon for 26 years. Had a show there called The Frantic Follies, which I believe still performs today, where I learned the first two Robert Service performances I'll do for you. The rest I learned from fellow Alaskan Larry Beck, the late great Larry Beck, watching him on a video perform. And well, if you like Robert Service, I hope you enjoy the show today. Just about lunchtime, so you'll like this first one I'll do for you here. It's called The Ballad of the Iceworm Coctail. There's a race of men that don't fit in, a race that can't stay still. So they break the hearts of kith and kin, and they roam the world at will. They range the field and they rove the flood, and they climb the mountain's crest. Theirs is the curse of the gypsy blood, and they don't know how to rest. Those are the words of Robert W. Service, and that's the way he described the men and some hardy ladies that came north to the land of Alaska and the Yukon, seeking their fortunes in two of the biggest gold rushes the world has ever known. There were thousands from everywhere and from all walks of life. There were doctors, lawyers, entertainers, preachers, bus drivers, tourists. There are men from Australia, Germany, Southern California. Any of you that have studied the history of Alaska and the Yukon will certainly recognize names like Skookum Jim, Tagish Charlie, George Carmax, or Robert Henderson, the man who supposedly discovered the gold on the creeks, yet got nothing for his trouble. But the man that put it all into verse and became known as the Bard of the Yukon and Alaska was Robert W. Service. And this is one of his poems. It's called The Ballad of the Iceworm Coctail. To Anchorage town came Percy Brown from London on the Thames. Pane of glass was in his eye and stockings on his stems. Upon the shoulder of his coat, a leather pad he wore to rest his deadly rifle when it wasn't seeking gore, to which it must have often been, for Major Percy Brown, according to his story, was a hunter of renown, who in the Murrumbidgee wilds had stalked the kangaroo and killed the cassowary on the plains of Timbuktu. And now the Arctic fox he meant to follow to its lair, and it was also his intent to bead the Arctic hare. Which facts concerning Major Brown I merely tell because I fain would have you know him for the Nimrod that he was. Now Sheriff Black and Deacon White were sitting in the shack and sampling of the whiskey that pertained to Sheriff Black. Said Sheriff Black, "I want to say a word about this Brown. The biker's sticking out his chest as if he owned the town. He has no lack of frigerated cheek. He called himself a sourdough when he'd been here just a week," said Deacon White. Methinks you're right, and so I have a plan by which I hope to prove tonight the mettle of the man. Just meet me where the hooch bird sings, and though our ways be rude, we'll make a proper sourdough of this Piccadilly dude. Within the Malamute saloon were gathered all the gang. The fun was fast and furious, and loud the hooch bird sang. In fact, the night's hilarity had almost reached its crown when into its storm center breezed the gallant Major Brown. And at this apparition, with his glass eye and +4s, from 50 alcoholic throats resounded 50 roars. With shouts of stark amazement and with whoops of sheer delight, they surged around the stranger, but the first was Deacon White. "We welcome you," he cried aloud, To this the great white land, the Arctic Brotherhood is proud to grip you by the hand. Ye sportsmen of the bulldog breed, from trails afar away, to Alaskans this is indeed a memorable day. Our jubilation to express vocabulary fail. Boys, hail the great Chichaco. And the boys responded, hail! And then continued Deacon White to blushing Major Brown. We're here today assembled, the elite and cream of Anchorage town. And when ambition fills their hearts and makes their bosoms glow, they want to make you honored, sir. A bony feed sourdough. The same, some say, is one has seen the Alaskan ice go out. But most profound authorities this definition doubt. And to the genial notion of this meeting, Major Brown, a sourdough is a guy who drinks an ice worm cocktail down. By gad, responded Major Brown. That's ripping, don't you know? I've always felt I'd like to be a certified sourdough, though I haven't any doubt your winter's awfully nice. May fear I fear, may miss me at the break-up of your ice. Yet pray excuse my ignorance in matters such as these. A cocktail I can understand, but what's an ice worm, please? Said Deacon White. It is not strange that you should fail to know, since ice worms are peculiar to the mountains of blue snow. Within the polar rim it rears a solitary peak, and in the smoke of early spring a spectacle unique. Like flame it leaps upon the sight and thrills you through and through. For though its cone is piercing white, its base is blazing blue. Yet all is clear as you draw near, for coyly peering out are hosts and hosts of tiny worms, each indigo a snout. And as no nourishment they find to keep themselves alive, they masticate each other's tails, till just the tough survive. Yet on this stern and Spartan fear, so rapidly they grow, that some attain 6 inches by the melting of the snow. And when the tundra grows to green and crocuses appear, they burrow down and are not seen until another year. Ah, tough as Sean, sniffed Major Brown. As well you may admit, I'd like to see this little beast before I swallow it. 'Tis easy done, said Deacon White. Say, barmaid, haste and bring us forth some pickled ice worms in the vintage of, last spring. But sadly still was barmaid Lil, and sighed as one bereft. There's been a run on cocktails, boss. There ain't an ice worm left. Yet wait, by gosh, it seems to me that some of extra size were picked and put away to show the scientific guys. Then deeply in a drawer she sought, and there she found a jar, to which with due and proper pride she put upon the bar, and in it wreathed in queasy rings, or rolled into a ball, a score of gray and greasy things were drowned in alcohol. Their bellies were a bilious blue, their eyes a bulbous red, their backs were gray, and gross were they, and hideous of head. And when with gusto and a fork the barmaid speared one out, it must have gone 10 inches from its tail tip to its snout, cried Deacon White with deep delight. Say, isn't that a beaut? Oh, I think it is, sniffed Major Brown. A most disgusting brute. Why, its very sight gives me the pip. Oh, bet my belly hatch you're only spoofing me, old chap. You'll never swallow that. Oh, the hell I won't, said Deacon White. Say, Lil, that fella is fine, fix up 3 ice worm cocktails and just put that wop in mine. So Barmaid Lil got ready, and with Coctail, her arch supreme achievement, she proceeded to prepare. Her silver cups like sickled moon went waving to and fro, and 3 celestial cocktails soon were shining in a row. And in the starry depths of each artistically piled, a fat and juicy ice worm raised its mottled mug and smiled. Then closer pressed the peering crowd, suspended was the fun, as Sheriff Black in courteous ways said, "Stranger, please take one." With a gesture of disgust, the Major shook his head. "You can't bluff me. You'll never drink that ghastly thing," he said. "Oh, you'll see all right," said Deacon White, and held his cocktail high till his ice worm seemed to wiggle and to wink a wicked eye. Then Sheriff Black lifted up a glass, while through the tense and quiet crowd a tremor seemed to pass. "Drink, stranger, drink," boomed Deacon White. "Proclaim you're of the best, a doughty sourdough who's passed the ice worm cocktail test." Then at these words, with all eyes fixed on gaping Major Brown, like a libation to the gods, each dashed his cocktail down. The Major gasped with horror as the 2 men smacked their lips. He twiddled at his eyeglass with unsteady fingertips into his starry cocktail. With a look of woe he peered, and his ice worm, to his thinking, most incontinently leered. Yet on him were 100 eyes, though no one spoke aloud, for hushed with expectation was a waiting, watching crowd. The Major's fumbling hand went forth, the gang prepared to cheer. The Major's faltering hand drew back. The mob prepared to jeer. The Major gripped his gleaming glass and laid it to his lips, and as despairfully he took some nauseated sips, from out its coil of crapulence the ice worm raised its head. Its muzzle was a murky blue, its eyes a ruby red. Then the Deacon bellowed forth, "This stiff comes here and struts as if he bought the blasted North. Just let him show his guts." With a roar the mob proclaimed, "Chee Chaco, Major Brown, reveal you're of sourdough stuff and drink your cocktail down." The Major took another look, then quickly closed his eyes, for even as he raised his glass he felt his gorge arise. Aye, though his sight was sealed and fancy could see that gray and greasy thing that reared and sneered in mockery, yet around him ring the callous crowd, and how they seemed to gloat. It must be done, he swallowed hard, the brute was at his throat. He choked, he gulped, oh, thank God, at last he got the horror down. Then came up a roar, "Hooray for Sourdough Brown!" With shouts they raised him shoulder high and gave a rousing cheer, but though they praised him to the sky, the Major did not hear. Amid their demonstrative glee, the light he seemed to lack. Indeed, it almost seemed that he was keeping something back. A clammy sweat was on his brow and powdered as a sheet. "I feel I must be going now," he plaintively repeat. Aye, though with drinks and smokes galore they tempted him to stay, with sudden bolt he gained the door and made his getaway. And there next night his story was the talk of Anchorage town, but gone and reft of glory was that wrathful Major Brown, for that ice worm, so they told him, of such formidable size was a stick of stained spaghetti. with 2 red ink spots for eyes. The Ballad of the Iceworm Cocktail by Robert W. Service. Thank you.